morning, so it worked out good. I didn't know I was teaching it tonight, so I forgot to put it on my calendar. All right, so this is getting pulled up. And I promise I don't like to sit down, but I'm going to have to run the computer. But once this is over, I'll stand up and be a little bit more enthusiastic. So one of the big things in the fire service is reporting, right? So every time that we have a call, we have an incident go out, we have to document it. And anything that's fire related, we have 7 days, and any other calls, we have 10 days to report those to the state. So it's really important that we have good documentation. When I say good documentation, I don't just mean like proper dates and proper times. We're also going to have to write narratives. Is anybody familiar with a narrative? Y'all ever wrote what's called a narrative before? Yes, basically it's just a timeline of events, what happened from the time the call was dispatched all the way until you got back to the station. We don't have to go super in depth with your narrative. We'll see some examples and everything, but you want to make sure that you're telling a good story. So there's two systems that we have to use right now to create a report. So the easiest way to get to it is just go to a regular browser. I'm gonna pull it over here. And you go to our website, so murraycountyfiretn.org. Let's go to the website. And at the top, you'll see a tab here that says member reporting. You click that, and it will take you into the reporting system where you log in. Once you get to this point, if you want to save this, you can hit the three little dots, more tools, create shortcut, and it'll put a little icon on your dashboard. That looks like, you can't see it. Anyways, it'll put the little ImageTrend logo and everything on your dashboard. You can just click it from there. Your login, that looks like that. Your login credentials will be your first name, last name. And the password is welcome1 with a capital W. Once you log in the first time, it'll prompt you to create a new password. You don't have to change it, just make it something that's pretty simple that you can remember. All of my county passwords are the same because there's nothing that, like my ImageTrend password is going to be the same, my email password for the reporting is going to be the same, just because there's no reason to keep it or make it complicated. This is your dashboard, so you'll get a little prompt there. It's kind of like a HIPAA notice, like, hey, you know, this information can be proprietary, you know, sensitive information, just acknowledge that. And you get your dashboard. This is kind of just some announcements and things. So 23 driver training, EVOC and SOK free. Have y'all done that? No. So this is just a quick link to get to it. And then here's a reference video. If you need help anytime that you're doing a report, you can just go to that. You'll see right here it has CAD login information. So that's where you're actually going to get your information. So whenever a call is done, or we close the call, dispatch sends an email of a call log. So you take that call log and that's where you'll get your information from. So that's as simple as just going to Gmail. It's mcfdcatinfo@gmail.com. Delete 2018. No, don't do that.
For their first time logging in on a device, we'll still send that thing to you or chief, and we have to get a confirmation number type in.
Yeah, the first time you log in, it may do like a two-factor authentication, so it'll send a little code. You can just put in the group me like, hey, need the code or something. One of us will get it quick. Are y'all familiar with the group me? Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll do it that way. All right, so you see on the inbox, it only pulled up just a few calls. To make sure that you can see everything, just go to all mail. And this is a list of every call that we've gone on since January 6th. So we're just going to pick one. If it has a little star, that means it's been completed. So we'll say Kettle Mills. Let's see what happened. Click it, and it's going to pull up. So right here is CFS, that's your call for service number. So you'll see it's the date 2023 and then the incident number. So for 2023, dispatch has catted 6,347 calls. That's all that's broken down to. You get your date and time here. You'll get a little bit of like a call type, some basic information. Here's your times dispatched and route, on scene. And then there's some notes here, just some general notes, kind of what you're telling dispatch. Looks like Duck River was requested. Anyway, so I'm going to pull this off to my other screen just so I can kind of reference back to it. All right, so here is your agency tab. So you'll see it says Murray County Fire at the top. That's where you want to make sure you're always at. You'll have also a demo agency, and what that's for, that's a training sandbox. So if you want to practice some reports, you want to just mess around with the system, you can switch to the demo agency, and everything that you log there is just for internal. It's not going to go to the state. So always make sure you're on the Murray County Fire level. This is called your Switch To tab. So right now you see we're in the fire. So it says fire here. You click this to view existing incidents. You click this to start a new incident. If you want to switch, so CQI, you don't have to worry about training and activities if you want to document training. An inventory, so that's where your turnout gear list is going to be, your portable radio, all the equipment that's issued to you, all of our trucks, all that stuff. You need to find any of that, document maintenance, all that is going to be through the inventory tab. And then checklist is how you do a truck check. We'll come back to that at the end. So we'll just go to view existing fire. It automatically backdates 2 weeks. So if you have started a report and it's been 2 weeks, hopefully it hasn't been, that's not good. Or you need to look at something, maybe somebody called and requested a report and you need to go back. You'll have to X that, hit go, it refreshes it, and you can see there's 104 calls in here. So again, you can start a report by hitting deploy the fire form, or you can just hit new right here. All right, so you have. See that a little better? Yeah. So on the left-hand side, you've got quick fill buttons and basic. You'll see as you select different call types, these fields over here may increase, those little banks, there may be more, there may be less. Just as you progress through the system, it builds. So maybe if you select a structure fire, right, well, then you're going to have a fire tab. You're going to have to fill out for that type of call. Your quick fill button. So what that is we're starting to build out some things that we respond to frequently, and we know that there's always going to be constants. So for example, if I respond to a motor vehicle crash with injuries, I automatically know the call type is going to be motor vehicle crash, right? I already know that the incident's going to be on the street. So you'll see, but it automatically picks some stuff for you. So this was a power pole fire, which is not a quick fill. Well, let's say it was a car crash. You would click vehicle crash. So this is preset value, motor vehicle crash with injuries. You click it, and it's going to show you everything that's going to change. So it's going to change your actions, your incident type, your narrative, and your response mode to the scene. So you apply changes, and you'll see your validation score increased. So to get to a complete report status, you have to have 100 validation. We're at 84. You get 1 point per question. All right. So I'm just going to make this up. All right, CFS. So that's that number we were talking about at the top of the CAD sheet. So 2023063347. That'll automatically populate your NIFRS compliant number. That's the state control number. Incident date. Type it in. See, it's already filled our incident type. Did you use water? Nope. If you click yes, it's going to want to know what hydrant you used and how many gallons. So that's a good estimate. We know we used the hydrant at 1257 Maple Ash Avenue. We filled tanker 1 and engine 1, 4,000 gallons. Pretty straightforward. Primary station is the station where the call occurred. So this was in Station 5's district. So Hampshire. You see the action taken was incident command, traffic control, and hazardous material spill control and confinement. Mutual aids. Was Columbia Fire there? Was Spring Hill Fire there? Or maybe we responded with Spring Hill. So it was actually Spring Hill's call and they requested us for assistance. So we would give them mutual automatic aid. Nothing there, hit none. No fire service deaths, no questions there we need to answer. So let me stop really quick. You'll see down here at the bottom, you have orange and you have red. Orange is recommended, red is required. So you'll see the location type is red, street address. All right, postal code. So I know this zip code is 38401. If I didn't know that, I can click the little hamburger and it'll kind of give me a few options. When I click it, it'll automatically fill all this in. All right.
Only ask questions.
Yeah, if I'm moving quick, let me know. So incident dates, times. Again, I'm just getting this information from our CAD sheet over here. All right, so I did that on purpose. You see how the time here is almost an hour. It's just going to give you a recommendation. Hey, double check your time. That's a really long time to get there. Property use. This happened on the road. So if you kind of know what you're looking for, you can type it in. If you don't, again, you can click the little hamburger and it kind of breaks it down. So, outside, it was,
You'll have to learn all this. Like
Yep.
This takes forever to learn.
Yep.
What category it is. So the good thing about this is you can actually type it in and search.
All right. So if you were working on a fire report, all this stuff that we're skipping over is going to be red. It's going to want to know if the smoke detectors work. It's going to want to know how much your property loss, your content loss. It's going to want to know all that stuff. But this is just a simple report. So here's what it's automatically populated. That does not mean the report's done and the narrative's complete. This is just a general narrative. You don't have to change this if you don't want to. You can add an additional narrative if you say, hey, whatever happened, I want to add that. Or, this is not going to apply for every call. This might be completely wrong and you may need to delete it completely. But you just want to make sure you're telling a timeline. Murray County Fire Department's dispatched to no location for report of, what happened when you got there, what did you see, who'd you talk to, that kind of thing. The who, what, when, where, and why. And that's pretty much it on the narratives.
Because if you have to go to court over this, if you get subpoenaed to court, you already talked about that.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So let's say you get subpoenaed to court, and you're like, shit, I don't remember that call at all, right? So we'll pull this call and you'll have to go back to your notes and refer back to your notes. So if you didn't put it in there, it didn't happen.
Yep.
So those notes help you kind of retrigger what actually took place in that call specifically.
So this is for each individual responding to that call that does this?
No.
No.
So it's one person, how does
Yeah,
that
so
work?
let's say you're doing a report, you would put everybody in here.
Yeah.
So
Typically, whoever establishes command.
who is that? Okay, that was the
Yeah.
next question.
Okay.
Yeah, who does it? Whoever has
Yeah.
command. Yeah, whoever's in charge. Now, if it's a house fire, let's say that Chief Estes gets there, he establishes command, right? We're there for 2 hours. He's going to go in, he's going to put in the who, what, when, where, why, times, locations, right? Let's say you're on engine 10 and you were actually the one that went inside the house, you put the fire out, you're going to need to come back in and go, I'll show you where, and add your additional narrative on what you see, what you saw. And that's important because Chief Estes's report is going to be good documentation, but when you do go to court, you're like, I don't remember what happened. I don't remember if that door was open. I don't remember if that window was, I don't know, so you want to make sure you're documenting that stuff really well. And that literally happened to, maybe that's probably a year ago now. We responded to a call on Brown Hollow Road where there was somebody shot over here and somebody shot over here and somebody shot over here. Right. Well, then a year passes and you're like, hey, everything's good. Next thing you know, you've got a subpoena and you're like, I have no idea what happened. So you put the address in, you're like, oh, I do remember now. Go back and read the narrative, refresh your memory. And then they're going to take that in court. They're going to want to see your documentation in court.
Or the FBI can come. That's no joke.
Though if we arrive on scene and initiate patient care beyond just getting vitals prior to EMS getting there? Is there any additional stuff we have to do for that? So if
Yeah.
we start splinting someone or Narcan before EMS is there?
Yeah, so anytime that we make contact with a patient before the ambulance gets there, we'll need to enter patients. So if you're on a car wreck and you have, obviously you're gonna have patients there, or you're just going to a medical call, you want your report to document from the time you arrived on scene till EMS got there, and then their report picks up. Because their report's gonna say, well, fire units on scene did this, and this, we got there and did X, Y, and Z. And then the hospital picks it up, and the hospital is going to track that patient all the way till discharge. So you have to have a full timeline from the initial receipt of the 911 call to patient discharge. And that's really important because that even comes back to, this is really in depth, but that comes back to the hospital doesn't get paid by Medicare if that patient returns within 48 hours. So they want that patient not to return. So then they're going to want to know why. What happened? Why does this patient coming back? Was it the initial responders that did something that could have hurt the patient or didn't treat, because if you don't give somebody respirations right and you cause them to have pneumonia, because you don't know how to ventilate a patient properly or use suction properly, and they have to return 2 days later because of that. So you've actually caused the onset of the symptoms. Now the patient's returning to the hospital is not getting paid. See how it's kind of like a big revolving door? So you want to make sure that you're documenting that. It's pretty straightforward. It's, hey, patient number 1, what time did I get at the patient? What did you see? Patient had trauma. They were in a car wreck, date of birth, I don't know, but I think they were 26, male, white.
And to go along with this, just real briefly, because I know there's a policy coming out on this. Might have already mentioned it, but like, if you haven't had a EMR class, you can't just respond to any med call, right? So this is where that kind of ties into, if you're EMR and you respond to difficulty breathing, then this is where you come in and you add that additional training that you had, medical training, to this report.
Yep.
So if you ain't had that, if you don't have that training, then you don't know what to add. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah. But if it's a confirmed cardiac arrest,
Right.
CPR in progress, since y'all are now certified for that, once you get the ombudsman to respond to calls from Chief or Randy, then that would be something you could go to. But just somebody with a injury that you don't have any licensure to treat, you wouldn't want to go there and show up just yourself, or go at all necessarily. Depending if you're already stationed as right along with folks, that might be okay, but you wouldn't want to respond to that without licensure to do anything.
Because you're gonna get all kinds of calls. You're gonna get, literally we had one a couple weeks ago. She wanted us to respond because she drank too much water. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, what do you do for, like, anyway. So that's pretty much the end of the.
What was the other one? Was it the ibuprofen today? I'm like, shit, I'll take that ibuprofen all day. That's the amount I'll take every day. What you talking about? It was attempted suicide.
Oh, yeah.
Like 5 or 6 ibuprofen or something like that.
I take that in the mornings to get going.
I know, that's a daily dose for me. What you talking about?
So what if we get there, there's 2 patients, one's not hurt and one is hurt? We document both patients or just one?
Correct. Both, anybody that you make contact with, you would want to document that as a patient. So if the reason you're there is the 911 response for said 2 patients, you want to document both. Now, that doesn't mean you respond for one overdose, and then while you're working this overdose, they overdose too. You're still going to document that patient, if that makes sense. That happens.
Say that again.
So say, like, if somebody calls 911 and say, hey, there's a car wreck and there's 2 people in the car, you're going to document both people. But if you respond to Meemaw's house because she's, whatever's happened, right? That's the only patient you need to document. Now, if you're there and a secondary incident occurs, like, the sister or daughter starts having a breathing issue because she's worried about mom, and now you've provided care to that patient too, then you need to document that patient.
Gotcha.
Hazmat's pretty straightforward. I mean, you just add it if you've got it. Most of the time you're not going to, and most of the time this is going to be done by a hazmat tech.
Some medical form still.
No.
Okay.
There's an EMS tab. You'll see if you actually respond to a medical call, it's going to populate more information. So,
Y'all probably won't be doing a ton of these initially, but some of this information that he's going over, that you can help whoever will be doing it, especially if we have, let's say, a wreck where there's multiple vehicles, multiple patients. You know, getting a, say, take a picture, but you also have to be mindful of HIPAA and not giving that, just passing it around, but getting a picture of a license plate number. Sometimes we help law enforcement dig out the driver's licenses and insurance cards because they don't want to get their uniforms dirty. So we'll get in there and get that stuff out. You can get a picture of that, figure out whoever's going to be doing the report, send it to them because they're going to be needing that information. And if the patients are in a capacity where they're not able to verbally give that, sometimes that's the only way we get it. So just, even though you may not be doing these right out the gate, kind of keep in the back of your head the things that somebody will need to be reported that you can kind of help them collect. If that makes sense.
yep. And there's a place to document that stuff too, so we'll go over that. So you see we're at 99% validation. If you click it, it'll show you, hey, right here, this is what you're waiting on. You can click it, it'll take you to it. But I can see here that the apparatus tab is flashing red or is red, so we need to click into that and see what we need to do. So this is where you add your units. So who responded? This part can be tedious because you're trying to find, you know, trucks that responded and people. And so this is the part that can be kind of hard. So if you put in, let's say, Chief 505, right? We know who that vehicle is assigned to. It's always going to populate his name. Automatically populate his name. But if you put in, let's say, engine 1, no personnel. So you're going to need to add people. Let's say Blake, can't type. That's the 4 people get put on this, right? Okay. So you'll see they're on there now. Beside the names, you'll see this number 995172242. That's your PSID. That's a state assigned number. That's documented because that associates you with the call. So that way, when this report is submitted to the state, they don't know who Jason Blackstock is. They know who 7242119 is. So they can document it that way, and that's how we keep track of it. So that's all stuff that we'll get. But in the future, if you want to sign up for trainings or you want to do things to the state, something that Chief Estes is going to ask you for is your PSID number. This is the perfect place to find it. It's going to be in your ImageTrend portal under your personnel ID. That's what that's going to be. So if you don't know it, can't keep up with it, that's where it's going to be. I still don't remember mine. I have to come back and look.
Once you get it, it's worth putting in notes in your phone.
Yeah.
I know we have to use them all the time at the city for our forms, and I can never remember mine. I always have to look it up, so keep it somewhere handy because you will need it again.
Yeah.
Regardless of how far you go into this.
Yeah, and y'all are going to hear a ton of terms. You'll probably already have heard of, you know, you're going to hear CADIS, you're going to hear TFACA, you're going to hear NIMS, you're going to hear ICS. There are so many abbreviations. It's like an alphabet soup trying to keep up with who regulates what, who I've got to go through for what, just to get one certification. I've got to go through TEMA, then I got to go through TFACA, then I got to go. You'll learn all that stuff. Don't let it frustrate you. There's kind of like a hierarchy system with the flow path of training. And, you know, so this person says, yep, you're good to go on to step 2, and then step 3, and then step 4. Then you get step 4, and then you have to go back down to step 1. So don't let that stuff frustrate you. I'm going to make a flow chart where you can actually look and see and understand, like, who is FEMA, who is TEMA, who is NIMS, who is ICS, or what is ICS, that kind of stuff. So we see we're at 100% validation. It's orange, so it has a recommendation. We can see it's this. So what Dane was talking about was we've had a motor vehicle crash. This is automatically recognized that you've catted this as a motor vehicle wreck. So what does that mean? That means there was drivers, there were people. So this is where you document that. Why is this important? It's important for 2 things. One's your documentation purposes. How do we know who was there? How do we know who we provided care to? Because your patient contact report is not actually going to have a name. That's because if we print the report, if you can come get any fire report at any time. If I print a report for Dane, there's HIPAA information that's going to be redacted. So your name's not going to be in the report. They can see that, you know, patient number 1 had a traumatic injury, but they're not going to get your name and your disposition and stuff like that, just for your protection and ours as well. So that's where you would document all this. So that's the first reason it's important. The second reason it's important because if we use $500 worth of oil drought, we use $1,000 in firefighting foam, we use all the insurance companies reimburse us for those expenses. But in order to get reimbursed for the expense, you have to call the insurance company and ask them to reimburse you for it. It doesn't cost the person that's been involved in the crash anything. There's no additional expenses to that person. But what it does, it helps us recoup some of the costs to operate. Another little fun fact, the fire department is the only government service that does not generate revenue. So you can imagine what that looks like on the backside of things. You know, EMS sends bills, cops write tickets, and we just spend money. So it's really nice to be able to recoup some of those funds. And it's pretty straightforward. You'll see there's 2 vehicles here. That's the most common. But if you have 3, 4, 5, or 6, when you hit OK on this, which I'm going to delete it because there's nothing in there, but you hit OK, it's going to populate that worksheet into here, and you can add another one. So you can add as many of those as you want. So you can have as many vehicles as you want. Once you feel satisfied, everything's good, you're getting 100% validation, you save it, close it. It'll give you 2 options. If you want to come back and work on it later, close without finishing, or you can hit finish.
Now I want to go back and work on this more.
So you can do that. So you'll see this is probably going to populate at the top. Crew complete. Right here, this is the call we just worked on. So crew complete means that you're done. Hey, the report's ready to go. A supervisor is going to come in, they're going to review it, they're going to make sure everything's good, everything's to par. They're going to change that status to ready for export. Still ready for export, you can still go in and edit it. You want to click the little arrow here, it takes you right to it. You can go in and make changes. It'll put it back to complete status, and we'll just know that it needs to be reviewed again. Once it says exported, it cannot be changed. Once it's been exported, it's been sent to the state, and that is the documentation. So if we change it, what they have on file and what we have on file when it comes time to go to court are going to be 2 different things. So it's going to make our documents look really shady. So say that it's ready for export, it has been exported, and you need to make a change. You can still go into the report. New information's come about, something's happened, you know, maybe somebody passed away, we need to update that. You can hit add exposure. So basically what that does, it takes all the information that's static, that hasn't changed, the call location, the times, the people that responded, all that stuff's already filled out. But you can add an exposure, some new information has come or something like that. That's where you would put it. And it basically creates a secondary report, like a supplemental report. Hey, here's the original report, here's the amended report, and you can do that as much as you want. Another example we see this would be, is if we have a house fire, put the fire out, and it rekindled, right? So the house we left 3, 4, 5, 6 hours later, the house, they call us back out and say, hey, it's back on fire again. Well, we've already done the initial fire report. We're 4 hours later. We don't want to go back and amend that report. So we add an exposure that says, hey, we responded back to the same location for the original reason at this time, this date for said so-and-so. So it's not often that we'll have that, but you can do that. You can still add new attachments. You can make amendments to it. You can send messages about it internally and stuff like that, but.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
On the screen, when you were entering the engine 1 and person's names, whoever's filling out this report is doing that for his engine and his personnel, or everybody on the scene?
Everybody.
Whoever's in charge.
That's where the group
Somebody help collect all that information.
The group me
so-
we're talking about, that's where that comes in. I mean, I know a couple of these folks mentioned they heard of GroupMe. If you haven't heard of the GroupMe app,
I've heard of the app, but I haven't been going with it.
y'all probably won't be added until the end of this initial training. And at which point, and Chief will know more, it'll either be in the responders one or the support one that Randy has.
Mhm.
That, when you get to the point where you are running calls, because believe it or not, we've got people that go through this thing and then just don't run any calls at all. But when you get to the point where you're actually coming on some scrutiny, they'll get you into the responder scrutiny, which is the people that are actually active. And I'll pull it up as an example to show you, once you start running calls, you'll go in there and I'll see your POV to something. It's gonna- see it.
Yeah.
And then so some of the information about the calls we'll put in here, nothing HIPAA. But this is where people will say, I responded on engine 1 with so-and-so. And then whoever's doing the report will refer back to that. They can also do it through I'm responding, but this is But would you agree this is probably the easiest referring back through here?
Absolutely. I don't know what's wrong.
It's just kind of a running thing that.
So whenever you do need information, the first place you probably go is recruiting to.
Or both, yeah. Depends on the information. So this is an example, if somebody's missing equipment or something, they'll put in here, this guy asks who's doing the theta pike report, so a lot of that stuff gets decomflicted in here. And then you'll have, you know, the individuals and you'll be assigned a number. So like he's saying he was POV to that call. So whoever's doing that report will then look back here, go back to the beginning, you know, not the whole day, but whenever that call started, and say he was on that call. If you weren't on an apparatus and you didn't have a year that you were POV, you might not get counted for going. And Bo, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a way to, within a reasonable amount of time, add somebody to it if they're on it or no?
Yeah, as long as it hasn't been exported to the state, we're good to add it. If you were on it and you're like, oh man, I was at it and I see it's already been exported, it wouldn't be a bad idea to jump in and just put an amendment on there and say, hey, I was on this call, didn't make it on the report. Not a big deal, this way it's documented.
Do you mind mentioning why it could be beneficial to people so that an actual accurate count of how many calls they go in on a year might be in?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to sound like politically correct. That's not really a good word. Anyways, we're a big organization. We have a lot of people. There's a lot of moving parts. There's 170 something people on our roster. That's a lot of equipment. That's a lot of moving parts a lot of times. So when it comes time to purchase new turnout gear or, you know, give out, we have jobs that come available for people to work to get compensation, right? You get paid Mule Day, like Mule Day's coming up. That's going to be a huge event. You're paid for those events. Well, if you've been with a department for 3 years and you've only ran 2 calls, you're not going to have the priority that Brett has when he's been here for 2 years and he's run 150, right? So that's why we're here, is to run the calls, to make the wheels turn. There's a lot of other things that happen behind the scenes, and that doesn't mean just because you're not running calls, you're not getting credit. But we wouldn't issue you a brand new set of turnout gear if you're not running calls. If that's not your interest is to, you know, help do any other thing, the other 100 things that go on in a day. That's what you want to do. You're going to get priority in those areas. But when it comes time to do things like that, you know, fire suppression jobs that are getting paid, right, we're going to give the priority to those people. So we run reports. We submit those reports to the county. Every month we submit a report to the county that shows what calls we went on, where we went, how many hours we were on those calls, and how much money we saved the county with the average fireman pay. Right? That's huge. So that's how we continue to grow and how we continue to get all these great things. So it is important, you know, to document those things. And on the flip side of it, if you haven't been on a call in 5 years, unfortunately, the state doesn't allow you to be on the roster anymore. So was it 5 years?
Correct, 5 years.
So they want you to keep it up. And that's important because it's you know, it's not necessarily like riding a bicycle. If you don't use it, you lose it. So it's not just going to come back to you at the drop of a hat. So that's some of the reasons it's important. Just on the group me, I know Dane showed y'all he was quicker than I was, but just like earlier, I was working on a report. I said, hey, anybody know the water use and hydrant locations for collection center fire? Yep, right here. McCain's 2,000 gallons. That way I can document that. We have to submit that, a lot of submissions. We have to submit that to the water department, right? Because they receive federal funding. So they're only allowed to lose X amount of water a year. So they have to report they lost 2,000 gallons of water at that fire, but it wasn't paid for. So all they look at is how much water did we produce? How much water did we sell? If we produced 1 million gallons and only sold 950,000, we've lost 50,000 gallons. That means you don't have an efficient water system. You say, well, actually the fire department used 45,000 gallons. So we only lost 5,000 gallons through water leaks, pipe breaks, whatever it may be. So we actually do have an effective water system. So they really crack down on those things, and they're intense with us on getting those reports in. So we have to really make sure that we're up on those things across the board. So that's why that's important too. And all this system does all that. When you put in that you were at McCain's Road and used 2,000 gallons, boom, it shoots them an email. It knows who it goes to. They can document it. We're covered on that side of things too. So, yes, sir.
Question about amending reports. The first example, you used a tab that said exposure. And when he said he wanted to add a responder, you said the word amendment.
Yeah, so adding exposure would be you were dispatched to the same location at a later date or time because of the original dispatch reason. So if you respond there for a house fire, you put the fire out, you thought, and then 6 hours later, they call you back and say, hey, the fire's not out, it's back on fire again. Well,
rekindle?
Yeah, rekindle. You didn't actually effectively put the fire out the first time. But with your exposure, you're gonna have a new dispatch time, a new response time, a new set of responders. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then the amendment tab is for just updating anything that was inaccurate.
Yep.
Make it better.
Yep. So that's about it on reporting. Unless y'all have any more questions. Good. All right. So really quick, we'll just run through a couple functions of this just so you're familiar with it. And once you guys get your login, you should get an email. Feel free to hop in here, look around. You're not going to be able to mess anything up. Checklist. So this is how you're going to do your truck checks. And what that looks like, if I can find one, I don't think I did one today. Gonna get there. All right, so you log in, you say, hey, time to do a truck check. You just pick your vehicle, so you'll pick engine 1, engine 5, whatever truck, and we're still working on building these out, but you'll pick whatever truck you're gonna do your check on. And what that's basically gonna do is give you an exact outline of what you're looking for. So you're on the L1 compartment, has 2 SCBAs, has a set of irons, lockwood hook. Oh, that's missing. All right, so you document that. That's going to email that, hey, this is missing on squad 12. It's already preset to who it's going to send it to. Whoever the station has determined would be in charge of that is going to get an email notification that, hey, so-and-so submitted this and said the lockwood hook's missing. So they can address that. It puts it on paper. And at the same time, you're going to go through, right, this isn't a fire engine, but if you're on a fire engine and you say, hey, it's pump's operational, it's got plenty of fuel, well, something happens, you can say, well, hey, look, we checked it this morning. So whatever malfunction happened at the scene. It wasn't because of neglect on our part. So that's important. We talked about inventory. You can just kind of show you what that looks like. Kind of gives you a list of everything. All your turnout gear, who it's assigned to, what brand, serial numbers, cost, all that stuff is issued in here. Let's see.
Go over training.
Let's see, it did not. Training and activities. So you've got your view existing tab. You can see what's been imported. Your create new, so you can do a training form. If you've done new training, so it's not when we get done, go in, log a new training form. Deploy water use. So again, talking about it's important to document our water use. If we do a training at the station, we use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 gallons, whatever it may be. You need to make sure you document that so it can be reported to the water company. Activity form is that's if you do anything at the station, it needs to be documented. For example, you do a station meeting, right? We want to report that to the county. Hey, we met for 3 hours on this day. This is what we talked about. Just make sure that we're able to document those things. Make sure, show we're active, right? Show that we're doing what we're supposed to do. We do a ton of smoke alarm installations. Make sure we document those. We have to document that we installed the alarms and where we installed them in order to get new ones from the state. So they send us 60. We have to show we installed 60. They send us 60 more. That's a free program. That's a great program. I don't know if y'all bought a smoke alarm lately, but they're about 20 bucks a piece. When you're putting in 8 or 10 of them, that's expensive. So we want to keep that up. We want to make sure we're documenting that really well. On the back side of things, if we say that we put a smoke alarm in at 305 Red Oak Trail and then we respond to a fire there in a year, and then you document that the smoke detectors weren't present right on your fire report because you didn't know, you're not going to remember that. Now the state's going to go, wait a minute, you said you installed smoke alarms, but they weren't present. So we want to make sure our documentation adds up, that kind of thing. I don't know what drivers is. Somebody's been in here messing around. But resources. Most of this stuff you don't really have to worry about. The only thing I would say that you would be concerned with is documents. You go into documents, this is where you're going to find all the policies. So that form we were talking about, you need to fill out for the smoke alarms. It's going to be right there at the top. Our medical protocols, every policy that we have, this is where you find it. Even down to our hose testing and our bottle testing records. You can download it. You can look at it. Again, there's no secrets. It's all
Go back through, if you don't mind, Bo.
Sure.
The training, like actually entering training.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
open it up, just run through it. But let's say you're at the station and, you do whatever training. This is where you would go and put it in at, and how you would do it.
All right, so we'll view existing, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. Again, it backdates 2 weeks. So you can kind of see what's going on. What you want to log into training, just hit new. It's pretty straightforward, it doesn't take much time at all. Course type, 16-hour, we'll go ahead and do the one for tonight.
F550.
Is there a F550 in there? Yeah. So this is chapter 4. We want to be a little bit more in depth, but just because.
And try to be accurate on this, so that way, you know, you can document how many hours you've done it, and if it's, you know, pretty self-explanatory, but just to kind of run through it, but you go through and just document everything. So, I know this is probably a little bit above y'all's head, but so ISO's insurance rating that we have, and we get 100% credit for every training that we do. So when y'all document training, we get credit for that.
Yeah.
So, always. So that's our goal now, is to start going through the department and making sure we're documenting all our training and making sure, so we get 100% credit for that. So if we have to go back through again and try to lower our ISO rating, and it helps for insurance purposes to the community, we get credit for that.
Yep.
So, I mean, you know about it, so.
There's a lot of things that you'll do once you're released to your stations, released to support, that you will not even necessarily think of as being any kind of formal training. There are things that you can put down. So if you go to Station 10 and you're talking with the crew there, you guys go wash the truck and you're talking about different things on the truck and going over where things are on the truck, that's going to be training, familiarization on your equipment. If you're going out driving around to kind of learn the area, and eventually if some of you start getting, and there's a process, but if some of you start getting trained to drive, you have to log a certain amount of driving time with a approved instructor. That type of information will need to be logged so that you have a record, or the department has a record that you actually completed all those hours. So there's a bunch of stuff you'll do. So when you're doing stuff like that, hopefully the senior person knows to report it. If you're not sure who the senior person is, maybe ask who's going to report it. That way it's in practice.
I know this seems like a lot, but somebody will be there, hopefully, and then help you go through it. But if they're not there, ask somebody, hey, can you help me go through this, or whatever. If not, can call me, and I'll stumble through it too.
Well, and just because our activity level, we went through an ISO audit last year, and because of our activity level, we got credit as a combination paid fire department, just because we're so active with our volunteers. So what that does on the backside of things, that moves us from an ISO class 10, which is the lowest class, or I guess you would call it the highest class, the worst insurance premiums possible, to ISO class 5. It's actually moved us up 5 classes. What does that look like for you? What saved me $300 a year on my homeowner's insurance? So multiply that out by 100,000 residents. We'll say 70,000 properties. What does that look like for the county? So it's important. I mean, documenting your training. So this is the very last tab. This is the only quirk that this has. You can see here, add attendees, but it says add multiple through attendee power tools. The best way is to go here, add. You fill all this out. And as you add folks, this is where you can actually add multiple people at a time. it automatically adds it pre-fills all that information out for everybody. If you need to go and make a change, it's easier to do it that way than it is to try to add each person. If you do it the other way, you have to add each person and do their time in, time out, hours and stuff, so it can be somewhat excruciating. Especially when you have 25 people. Huh? Oh, yeah.
We get in the car sick, just.
Sorry, I drive fast.
He only has one speed. He
Uh,
only has one speed.
The video that I told y'all could watch, the little link at the front, a couple people called me and were like, you went too fast, I can't get it. I'm like, okay, I'll do another one. So this one is, instead of being 15 minutes, it's 46 minutes, so hopefully it'll be good. So, do y'all have any questions on that? Was that pretty clear as mud?
And I know we went through that quick, but a lot of you guys, some people will be with you to work through this, or they will already have this done, so.